Hey guys, welcome back for another video. What we're going to do today is we're going to look at all of our Monday, March 31st baseball games. We're going to completely break down every single matchup we have, look at the rosters, look at the games, try to break them down, try to predict the outcome, who's going to win, who's going to lose, and we're also going to focus on our best bets, the money lines, the spreads, the over-unders. First things first though, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments about these games or anything else, by all means, drop them below, and I'm going to make sure to respond to every single one of them. We have our first weekend of Major League Baseball in the books. It was a crazy weekend. Saw a lot of home runs, a lot of crazy stuff, but so far the baseball season is off to a hot start. We want to make sure to keep up with it, keep track of it. The weather's getting hot, and with that hot weather, we are glad that we finally have baseball back to lead us into the summer months. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to go over every single game, every single day throughout the entire season, and we also have all the off-the-season football stuff going on for the NFL, the draft coming soon, as well as college football. We cannot wait also till college football and the NFL get back, and we have the regular seasons there, but make sure to like and subscribe. Let's go ahead and get started kicking things off. We have 14 games in total. We have a lot of info to go over, a lot of stats to look at. The very first one we have kicking things off, we have at 2:10 p.m. on the 31st. We have the 1-2 Kansas City Chiefs coming off of losing 2 of 3 to the Cardinals. They'll be playing the 0-3 Milwaukee Brewers, coming off of a slugfest versus the New York Yankees. They were swept. That was a crazy series. The Yankees tied the record for most home runs in the first 3 games. They hit, 13 or 14 total home runs. They hit 9 in one game. Judge right now 4 home runs in that first series. Milwaukee, they were getting blasted. Was it the new Viper bats? Was it the pitching? We don't know as of yet, but a crazy series. They just have to hope that the pitching staff gives up a lot less home runs here to Kansas City. Right now, Kansas City, they have a 53% chance to win this game on the road, and the Brewers have a 47% chance to win this game at home. Right now, Kansas City, they are 1.5 run favorites. The over-under here is 8.5. You have Kansas City, they are even on the money line. The Brewers are minus 120. So this game, this is going to be kind of a tough one right now because Kansas City, they haven't gotten their bats going as well, but obviously they have a very talented roster. When you look at this roster top to bottom, India, Bobby Witt Jr., Pasquantino, Perez, there's a lot of weapons there. They just have to make sure to kind of get everything rolling. For the Brewers had no problem scoring runs. It was the fact that the pitching staff was giving up way too many runs per game. Looking at the stats so far, Kansas City comes in, they're averaging 3.3 runs a game. They're hitting .218. Their team ERA 4.82. For Milwaukee, they're averaging 4.7 runs per game. Like I mentioned, they're having no problem scoring runs. It's the pitching staff getting gashed. The team ERA through that first series, 12.75. Probably the highest you've ever seen at this point of the season, but it was just the first series. It doesn't mean nothing. Obviously, it's going to get a lot lower than that. For Kansas City, they're going to be going with Bubic as the starting pitcher, and you have Milwaukee going with Rodriguez, who actually missed all of last season. It's been a while since he started a game. He hasn't pitched a full game in about 2 to 3 seasons. That's going to put a lot of pressure. Both of these guys are young pitchers. Bubic, we have a little more tape on him. We've seen him pitch more. Kansas City technically has the better lineup on paper. As long as they get those bats going, and they have the veteran pitcher, we're going to go with Kansas City winning this one, but I do think it's going to be a lower scoring game. Kansas City wins, they cover the spread, but I'm going to go with the under. And then moving to the American League, the next game at 2:10 p.m., we have the 0-3 Minnesota Twins versus the 1-2 Chicago White Sox. This is an interesting game. The Twins are also coming off of getting swept. This is a team a lot of people actually have competing, potentially winning the AL Central. They have the bats there. They have some pitching. They got swept that first series. There's no reason to panic. When you're struggling, though, and you're 0-3, you want to be able to play a really crappy team so that you have a chance, an opportunity to get things back on track. And thankfully for the Twins, they are playing the Chicago White Sox. Yes, they sit at 1-2, but do not forget Chicago last season, they lost 121 games last season. They're not going to be that bad this season, but that is historically one of the worst teams ever put on a field last year. So Minnesota, you have a chance to get things back on track here, potentially fight your way back to 500. You might even sweep Chicago, find yourself back at 500 once this series ends. This is your opportunity. You are on the road, though. You have the hitters there. You have Correa, you have Bucks, and you just have to kind of get everything back on track here. As of right now, the Twins 52.5% chance to win this game. Chicago has a 47.5. The Twins come into this game 1.5 run favorites. The over in here is 8.5. Minnesota, they're minus 185. Chicago is plus 155. Looking at the stats so far throughout the season, Minnesota comes in right now. They're averaging 2 runs a game. They obviously have to get that up. They're hitting 167. That's awful, but it's only been 3 games. The team ERA 6.38. Chicago's actually played a lot of really close games. They're averaging 3.3 runs a game. They're hitting 196, which is also awful. And their team ERA is 1. It's obviously not going to stay that low. We're only 3 games in. It's going to go up a lot higher. But so far, they have kept the games low. They've kept the games close. That's what's enabled them to be able to steal one of the first 3. And the pitching matchup here for the Twins are going to be going with Chris Paddock. Right now, he's about a 4.5 career ERA guy. And the Chicago White Sox are going to be going with Martin Perez. Perez actually didn't have a bad season last year, but overall in his career, a 4.44 ERA guy. Both of these guys get shelled sometimes. There's the opportunity for both teams to be able to move the ball, to be able to get on the bases, drive some runs in. But when you're looking at the 2 rosters, the Twins obviously have the far more talented roster. Yes, they're 0-3, but do not let that fool you. We are going to go with the Twins winning this one, getting their first win of the season in their 4th game. They win this one. They finally score some consistent runs. We have them covering the spread, and we're going to go with the over. And then our next game is actually setting up to be a very difficult game to call. There's going to be a 2:35 p.m. We're going to have the 1-3 Boston Red Sox. A lot of people are potentially predicting the Boston Red Sox to make a run at the AL East. Some people are actually picking them as an underdog to win the World Series. Yes, they're 1-3. They got over a very difficult slate with the Texas Rangers there, but this roster is very talented. They have the pitching. They have the bats. They just have to get them all on the same page at the same time. They're going to be playing the 2-2 Baltimore Orioles coming off of that series with the Blue Jays. Very difficult team to play. They don't have the pitching, but they have a very aggressive batting order. A lot of young talent on the batting order this season. Looking at this matchup, you have the Orioles here, 62.4% chance to win this game. Boston, a 37.6% chance to win this game. Baltimore, 1.5 run favorites, and the over-under here is 9.5. Vegas definitely sees some runs being scored here. Boston, they're plus 125. Baltimore, they're minus 150. The reason that we see some runs being scored here, you have Boston going with Newcomb. Career 4.51 ERA. Gives up a lot of runs. Very susceptible to the long ball. And you have Baltimore. This is a home run built team. There's a lot of power in this batting order. Povich, young guy. We haven't seen that much on him. He doesn't have the best stuff. He's not a strikeout pitcher. He leaves a couple balls over the plate. There's going to be opportunities for Boston to also be able to kind of stretch their power here. Right now, Boston comes in. They're averaging 2.8 runs a game. They're hitting 194. Team ERA 3.55. Pitching has kept them in a lot of these close games. And for Baltimore, they're averaging 6 runs a game. They're having no problem scoring. They're hitting 273. They are getting on base in their team ERA 4.5. I see no issues with the Baltimore offense. Their Achilles heel this season is going to be their starting pitching and their relief pitching, but I'm going to go with Baltimore winning this one. I could see like a 6-5 game. I'm going to go with the plus 1.5, but I will be going with the over. And then the next matchup we're looking at, moving over to the National League, we have at 3:05 p.m., we have the 1-2 Colorado Rockies coming off of a loss here versus the 2-1 Philadelphia Phillies also coming off of a loss. Both teams want to get some things on track. When you're looking at Colorado, no one has them competing in their division this season. They are usually a tough team to play at home, not so much on the road for the Phillies. A lot of people are favoring them to win the NL East. Very talented offensive roster, one of the best pitching staffs in all baseball, one of the most well-rounded teams. They didn't make a lot of moves this offseason, but they didn't have to because they were already a World Series caliber type of team. This team is very talented. Yes, they lost yesterday to the Nationals, guys. It's just one game. There's absolutely no reason to panic. Phillies heavy favorites here. They're such a heavy favorite that it kind of scares you because they're favored by just a little too much. Right now, Philadelphia, 75.5% chance to win this game. Colorado, 24.4. Right now, the Phillies, 1.5 run favorites. The over-under here is 8.5. Philadelphia, minus 250. Very, very heavy favorite. And Colorado's plus 195. Colorado right now, they're averaging 2.7 runs a game. They're hitting 220. Their team ERA 3.6. Not bad at all. Philadelphia, This is a batting order that can score, they can get on base, they can draw walks, they can hit home runs. They're averaging 6.3 runs per game so far through their first 3 games. They're hitting .275. The team ERA 4.67. No need to worry about that. They have a very talented pitching staff. Looking at the pitching matchup, you have Marquez going for the Rockies. Not a bad pitcher by any means. He's a strikeout pitcher. He struck out 230 batters before. He keeps that ERA about, I'd say, 4.424 usually every season. And on the other side, you have Sanchez. He hasn't pitched that much, but the stuff he's pitched, he's not bad at all. Probably about a 3.824 ERA type guy. We're going to go with the Phillies winning this one. That lineup scares me. They are at home. They have the bats there. We have Philadelphia winning this one, but for some reason I'm feeling it's going to be a close game. I have them covering the spread, but I'm actually going to go with the under here. And staying in the National League, this game's going to be an NL East on NL East game at 6:40 p.m. We're going to have the 1-2 New York Mets. They only got one of their first 3 games versus Houston Astros. Their offense has looked atrocious so far to start the season. No need to panic. When you look at this roster, a lot of those bats are going to get going soon. They'll be playing the 3-1 Miami Marlins. That's right, the 3-1 Miami Marlins. Yes, this team is going nowhere this season, but you have to give them some props. They've played very competitive that first 4 games. They were able to take the series. They won 3 of 4. That's some massive momentum going forward. Can they potentially here win 4 of their first 5? Right now, the Mets, 53.7% chance to win this game. They are 1.5 run favorites. The over-under here is 8.5. The Mets minus 180. The Marlins are plus 150. The Mets. Yes, Juan Soto's been getting on base. He has his first home run as a Met. He's hitting .333 right now, but everybody else has basically been sucking it up. Lindor, Alonso, Vientos. But when you look at this roster, even though a couple guys are banged up, this roster is loaded. They have everything that you could want if you were constructing a roster. Overall, they still have a top 5, top 3 roster in all of baseball. Yes, they're only averaging 1.7 runs per game right now, but obviously, that's not going to be the statistic that they finished this season with. They're hitting 136. That's awful, but it's their pitching. Their biggest question this season was going to be their starting rotation. It has actually looked pretty good so far, even without Senga so far this season. They're only giving up 1.8 runs per game. Pitching has looked good. We just got to get the bats going. And for the Marlins, they're averaging 4 runs a game. They're hitting .250. Their team ERA is 2.31. The pitching matchup is going to be David Peterson. David Peterson started out last season. He was pitching awful, but the last 3 months of the season, he was actually in the top 10 in the nation in lowest ERA. Finished the season 10-3 with a 2.9 ERA. Sometimes he has a great game. Sometimes he has a bad game. You just have to hope, if you're a Mets fan, he starts out this season on track. This is a guy. He's a left-handed pitcher. He can dominate on the mound when he's on. When he's off, he does give up the long ball. And on the other side, you have Concho going for the Marlins. I have the Mets building some momentum here. Yes, they didn't play their first series, but they're going to get things on track. They're going to make a run at the NL East. They're going to make a run at the World Series this season. I have them winning this one. The bats kind of wake up. They cover the spread, and we're going to go with the over. And staying in the NL, the very next game is going to be at 6:40 p.m. We have the 3-1 Texas Rangers. What about Jacob deGrom? Came out of nowhere last night. He comes out. He throws 5 scoreless innings, strikes out 6. The Texas Rangers, they have some momentum going on right now because their pitching staff, Eovaldi, deGrom, they're going to look really good this season. Corey Seager sat out yesterday, so he should be playing today. They're going to be playing the 1-2 Cincinnati Reds. The Reds. A lot of people have them as a potential underdog to win their division this year. Right now, the Reds, 53% chance to win this game, but they're actually going to find themselves as the Vegas underdog. Texas here on the road, 1.5 run favorites. The over-under here is 8.5. You have to respect Texas coming out of the American League. Their bats, when their bats are on, they can score some runs, and the pitching has looked pretty good so far. But the Reds do have some untapped potential there right now. Right now, Texas, they're averaging 3.3 runs a game. They're hitting .240. They're giving up 2.5 runs per game. And for Cincinnati, they're averaging 3.3 runs a game. They're hitting .221, and they're giving up 4 runs per game. For Cincinnati, they're going to be going with Brady Singer there as their starting pitcher. He's the right-hand pitcher, usually about a sub-4 ERA pitcher, so he's going to keep this game down. He's going to keep this game close. And for Texas, they're going with Rocker as the starting quarterback. He's only pitched 3 games in his career, started 3 games. There's not much tape on him. We haven't gotten to see him that much. He's a little bit of an unknown here. He is a strikeout pitcher, could come out. He could own this game here. But the season is young here. A lot of pressure on him to keep that momentum going. I'm actually going to go with the upset here. I have the Reds pulling off the upset at home, winning this one, going with the +1.5, and I'm going to go with the under. And then some more NL versus AL games. This game at 7:05 p.m. We have the 1-3 Pittsburgh Pirates. Not their best performance there versus the Marlins. They want to leave that game behind them, get some things back on track. They'll be playing the 2-1 Tampa Bay Rays. Right now, the Rays at home, well, if you want to call it at home, they are in the state of Florida. Their home is technically destroyed right now. They have a 64.5% chance to win this game. Pittsburgh has a 35.5% chance to win this game. The Rays, they find themselves as the Vegas favorites. 1.5 run favorites. The over in here is 8.5. They're -185. Pittsburgh is +155. Pittsburgh, Cruz, you got to keep the errors down. You have to keep everything in front of you. Keep this game under control. Right now, they're averaging 3.5 runs a game. They're hitting 184. They're giving up 3.22 runs per game. Pitching hasn't been the problem. It's been the offense so far, but the season is young. You got the veteran McCutchen. You have Cruz. There's a lot of excitement here. You're not a bad team at all. Just make sure to keep things cool down here. You have a real shot to beat Tampa Bay on the road. Tampa Bay, they're averaging 3.3 runs a game, hitting 286. The bats have looked great so far. They're giving up 2.33 runs per game. Both of these teams need this win. Pittsburgh has to get things back on track. Tampa Bay, they're in a very competitive division, so obviously every single win counts. Looking at the starting pitching for Pittsburgh, they have Molodzinski pitching. He hasn't pitched that many games as a starting pitching going forward. Not a bad pitcher by any means. Last season, a 2.8 ERA. And for Tampa Bay, they have Rasmussen going here. Usually he's a sub-4 ERA pitcher. He's a veteran. He's been in the league for a while. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay winning this one, covering the spread, and I'm also going to go with the under here as well. And then at 7:07 p.m., we have the 1-2 Nationals. They won that last game yesterday. They'll be playing the 2-2 Toronto Blue Jays, who actually just are coming off of splitting that series with the Baltimore Orioles, which was a very competitive series. This game is going to be at 7. Right now, Toronto, 57.3% chance to win this game. Washington has a 42.7% chance to win this game. The Blue Jays here at home, they're going to be 1.5 run favorites. Over in here is 8.5. The Blue Jays, they're -175. The Nationals are +145. The Nationals, yes, they won that last game. You can call that some momentum. They actually have not been playing too bad this season, but again, their biggest issue, as it's been for a couple years, has been their starting pitching. Right now, they're averaging 4.7 runs a game. They're hitting 252, but they're giving up 5.79 runs per game. They obviously have to get that number down. You have to at least get it sub-4. And on the other side for Toronto, they're averaging 4.5 runs per game. Very competitive series here versus Baltimore. They're hitting 258, but they're giving up 6 runs per game. Yes, they're a lot better than that, but obviously with some of the injuries they have, they got to get that number down as well. For Washington, they're going to be going with Soroka. He's a the type of guy. When he has a good game, he has a good game, racks up some strikeouts. When he has a bad game, he's going to give up 5 to 6 runs. It is what it is. And on the other side, you have Francis. You haven't seen that much from Francis technically, but both of these guys' ERAs are sitting around that 4.2 to 4.5. So there's a potential here to be some runs scored. Toronto coming off of that tough series, they've shown that they could expand their bats here. I'm going to go with the Blue Jays winning this one, covering the spread. I do see some runs being scored, so I'm going to go with the over. And at 7:45 p.m., we're going to have the 2-1 Los Angeles Angels. They're coming off of winning 2 of 3 here versus the Chicago White Sox. They'll be playing the 3-0 St. Louis Cardinals, coming off of sweeping the Minnesota Twins. Really good performance that first series, and they have some veteran bats on their lineup. That's what's made the difference. Nolan Arenado, if you can keep him going throughout the season, this is a guy who could potentially lead you to being very competitive in your division throughout the season. If you're out of it at the midway point, he's going to be some massive trade bait there right before the trade deadline. Right now, St. Louis, 60.2% chance to win this game. The Angels, a 39.8% chance to win this game. The Cardinals, 1.5 run favorites. The over-under here is 8.5. Looking at the Angels, the problem continues to be their bats. Right now, outside of Trout being the guy, Ward's had a great season so far. They're only averaging 1.7 runs per game. Trout, you got to stay healthy this season. You are going to be the guy again, basically the only feared batter in that lineup. You always get hurt. Just please try to stay healthy. We would love to see a healthy Trout season. Right now, they're hitting .202. Their team ERA 3.46. And for St. Louis, they've had no problem scoring runs. They're averaging 6.3 runs per game, hitting .306. The team is hitting .306. That's a testament to just how well Arenado's playing. And where he goes, the team follows. Their team ERA is 2 runs per game. Pitching matchup here for the Angels, they're going to be going with Tyler Anderson, and on the other side, St. Louis is going with Mikolas, who last season I think his ERA was like 5.45. It was awful. Thankfully for him, the Angels cannot get on base, cannot drive in runs here. I'm going to go with St. Louis winning this game. I have them covering the spread, but for some reason I'm seeing like a 5-3, 5-2 type game, so I'm going to go with the under here. And then a fun game at 8:10 p.m. We have the 2-1 San Francisco Giants here visiting the 2-1 Houston Astros, coming off of winning 2 of the 3 versus the New York Mets. Right now, the Astros heavy favorites at home, 60.3% chance to win this game. San Francisco, a 39.7% chance to win this game. Houston, 1.5 run favorites. The over here is 8.5. And Houston, they're minus 130. The Giants, they are plus 110. What makes this game so interesting is the depth the Astros have on their pitching staff. For San Francisco, they're going to be going with Jordan Hicks. He had 20 games he started last season. Outside of that, we really don't have that much tape on him. He doesn't have very many games as a starting pitcher. Being a reliever, being a starter, 2 completely different things, especially when it comes to pushing your arm in the later innings. And for the Astros, are going to be going with Blanco. Blanco last season, 13-6. His ERA, 2.85. He showed what he's capable of throughout a full season. He can give you some really good starts. Right now for San Francisco, they're averaging 4.7 runs a game. They're hitting .214. Their team ERA 3.46. In Houston, they're only averaging 2 runs a game, but still, because their pitching has been so good, they've won 2 of 3 versus the vaunted New York Mets lineup. They're hitting .176. It doesn't even matter because they're winning, and their team ERA 1.33. It's a lot of pressure on Blanco to keep that great starting pitching performance going, but I actually have them doing it. I have the Astros winning this one. I have them covering the spread, and again, I'm going to go with the under here. Now, this next game is a really interesting one. At 9:40 p.m., we have the 2-1 Guardians coming off of a really good performance this past series versus the 4-0 San Diego Padres. And they're not 4-0 versus a crappy team. They swept the Atlanta Braves in a 4-game series. Swept the Braves. The Braves have a top 3 roster in Major League Baseball. I mean, a top 3 batting order. They gave up 1 hit yesterday, won that game 5-0. They've been winning their games in dominating fashion. They have not been close. This is a great start to their season. They have the Dodgers in their division. That's who they have to compete with. So far, so good for them. Right now, San Diego at home, 58.9% chance to win this game. Cleveland, a 41.1% chance to win for the Guardians. San Diego, 1.5 run favorites. The over here is 8.5, where the Guardians are averaging 5.3 runs per game. They're hitting .263. They're giving up 2.67 runs. Both teams, great first series. That's why this game's going to be so competitive. But it's 2 teams that have a shot to both win their division this season. And for San Diego, they're averaging 4.3 runs a game. They're hitting .270. Their team ERA, 1.75. It's looking pretty good right now. For San Diego, they're minus 135. Cleveland, they are plus 115. For the Guardians, they're going to be going with Ortiz as their starting pitcher. Again, younger pitcher. We don't have that much tape on them, but thankfully for the Guardians, San Diego here, we're starting to kind of stretch the starting rotation performance. They're going with Kyle Hart. We haven't actually seen this guy pitch in the major leagues in a couple of seasons. That is a massive task for him. Cleveland, very talented roster. He's going to have to come in here, continuing that shutdown performance San Diego's had. 4-0 so far to start the season. It has to end at some point. We're going to go with the upset here. We have Cleveland pulling off the upset. We're going with the plus 1.5, and we're going to go with the over. And moving on to the American League versus the American League at 9:40 p.m. We're getting into some late games. We have the 0-3 Detroit Tigers. They're coming off of getting swept by the Los Angeles Dodgers. Obviously, don't take any fault in that. It's not your fault. They made it competitive. They made it in your extra innings one game. They fought their tail off. They, put up a fight. Getting swept by the Dodgers, there is no shame in that. They are still the best team in baseball. They're going to be visiting the 2-2 Seattle Mariners, coming off of splitting the series with the Athletics. Right now, the Mariners are at home, 54.6% chance to win this game, and Detroit, a 45.4% chance to win this game. Seattle, 1.5 run favorites. The over in here is 7.5. Vegas sees this being a very low-scoring game. Right now, you have the Tigers. They are even. Seattle, they're minus 120. Detroit, they're averaging 4 runs a game. They're hitting .238. Their team ERA, 6.75. It's probably not that bad when you've been pitching to that ridiculous Dodgers lineup. And Seattle, they're averaging 2 runs a game. They're hitting .175. Their team ERA, 3.25. They got to get the bats going. Polanco and company, you got to get off to a hot start here. You have to kind of get things on track. But once you get Rodriguez and company going, you're going to be able to start scoring some runs. It's going to happen at some point. Those bats are going to wake up. Right now, Detroit, who they're going to be going with, they're going to be going with Joe Biaz, their starting pitcher. He's pitched in 2 games before, but this is actually going to be his very first start. And Seattle, they're going with Hancock. Hancock has actually only made 12 starts throughout his career, so we have 12 total starts between these two guys. Very hard game to call because we just haven't seen these guys pitch too much. And when you look at the lineups really haven't gone crazy, but Seattle has the better lineup on paper, but they have not performed up to date, but they are facing a young, fresh pitcher, so maybe that'll kind of spark some things, get some things going. We're going to go with Seattle winning this one. We're going to go with them covering the spread, and just because it doesn't look like it's going to happen, I'm also going to go with the over. In our second to last game, a very late one at 10:05 p.m., the 2-4 Chicago Cubs lost that first 2 to the Dodgers, actually split their past series with the Diamondbacks. Very competitive series. Diamondbacks are actually a pretty good team here, so there's no fault there. They'll be playing the 2-2 Athletics, who split their series with the Seattle Mariners. Right now, Chicago, 53.8% chance to win this game on the road. The Athletics, a 36.2, which is a pretty interesting here because Chicago, 1.5 run favorites. The over-under is 8.5. The Athletics plus 110. Chicago minus 130. Again, we have 2 young pitchers who we have not seen that much of. Ben Brown going for Chicago. Joey Estes going for the Athletics. We don't have that much tape on them. They've only been pitching a couple seasons. They're both 25 years old. They're both young. When that happens, technically anything can happen here. Kyle Tucker, he's been shredding so far for the Cubs. And on the other side, the Athletics, you kind of got to get some things going on offense. Chicago, they're averaging 4.2 runs a game, hitting .208. They're giving up 6.23 runs per game, but they've had some very competitive series here versus the Dodgers and versus the Diamondbacks, who both have stacked lineups. And for the Athletics, they're averaging 3.5 runs a game. They're hitting .211, and they're giving up 1.59 runs per game. I can see Chicago winning this one, but I'm actually going to go with the Athletics here, pulling off the win, winning this one, going with the plus 1.5, and we're going to go with the over. And our final game, and it's a really good one, at 10:10 p.m., we have the 0-4 Atlanta Braves. It's crazy to say that 0-4 swept their first series versus the Padres, versus the undefeated 5-0 Los Angeles Dodgers, who, let's call it what it is. Their goal is to probably break the all-time wins record this season. This lineup is crazy. The batting order is crazy. The pitching staff is crazy. They just have to hope that everyone stays healthy, and they could really make a crazy run this season here. Right now, the Dodgers, heavy favorites, 62.5% chance to win this game. The Braves, a 37.5. But if anyone can match the Dodgers position-wise, it's probably the Braves. Very talented roster. They have in no way gotten anything going on offense throughout this entire season. There's no reason to panic. Braves fans, do not go crazy. This team is going to wake up, and when they do, I feel bad for whoever they're going to be playing, but they're going to be the underdog here on the road. They are 1.5 run favorites. The over here is 8.5, and I could see some runs being scored in this game. Right now, the Dodgers, they are minus 220. The Braves are plus 175. The Braves, they're averaging 1.8 runs a game. Like I said, do not panic. They're going to go crazy once they wake up. Once they get Acuna going, it is going to light a spark under this team. They're hitting 148. It's awful, but it will get higher. And they're giving up 4.78 runs per game. The Dodgers are averaging 6 runs a game, hitting 224. Their team ERA 2.93. For the Braves, they're going with Grant Holmes. We haven't seen that much from him. You have a young pitcher here. His duty is to end the Braves' losing streak and to end the Dodgers' winning streak. That is a lot to ask from a young pitcher. And on the other side, Tyler Glass now going for the Dodgers. He's been up and down, but obviously when he's on, he can rack up some wins here, can keep some guys off the bases. I have to go with the veteran pitcher with the stacked team in this situation. But I think the Braves are going to put some pressure here. They're going to keep this game close for a little while. But those Dodgers hitters are going to be able to take advantage of the young Holmes. I have the Dodgers winning this one, covering the spread, but I'm going to go with the over here. Guys, it's just a quick rundown. That's a quick picks, predictions, and best bets for all of our Monday, March 31st games. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments, please drop them below, and I'm going to respond to every single one of them. Thank you.